Good evening. I'm Reverend Jim Webb, and welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity. I serve as the senior minister of the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I'm the author of the book, The Soul of Prosperity, which is now available as an audiobook, as well as an ebook and in paperback from Amazon.com. I want to welcome you tonight because tonight we've got a very special show. You know, I'm on the internet a lot. And on the internet, you always see these articles called life hacks. And they're little shortcuts that can make your life more easy and more effortless. And so I thought to myself, well, I know some hacks for prosperity as well. And I want to share some prosperity hacks with you tonight. But first, I want to ask you, what type of prosperity would you like to experience? Would you like to have professional prosperity, where your work is rewarding, fulfilling, and where you are compensated in a way that is fair and more than meets your needs? Would you like relationship prosperity, where you feel a sense of comfort, support, and loving compatibility and harmony in your relationships? Would you like financial prosperity, where your finances are no longer a source of worry, but you've got more than enough to spare, more than enough to share, and your finances are a source of joy and fulfillment for you? Would you like spiritual prosperity, where you feel and know yourself to be a part of something much bigger than you, a beneficent, benevolent force? Would you like physical and logistical prosperity, where your life simply works well, where your life is easy, where your struggles are minimal, mitigated, or non-existent, where you can get around, move around easily and effortlessly, and where your body is a joyful place to reside? All of these are different types of prosperity, and they all have one source. All of these types of prosperity are hiding in plain sight. Our task is to either remove the barriers that would keep us from this experience of prosperity, or to use the tools available to us to allow this prosperity or draw it to us. And that gets me back to tonight's subject, prosperity hacks. There are lots of tools in our toolbox that can enable us to manifest more prosperity. There are some key hacks that can change everything. And so tonight's theme, hacking your way to prosperity, I want to talk about one of these key hacks, and I want you to ask questions about this too. The key hack for prosperity that I want to talk about is the hack of perspective. If we change our perspective, we can change and improve our ability to experience prosperity. So let's do a little game with this first of all. I want you to take your thumb and forefinger of one hand, your thumb and forefinger of the other hand, and I want you to create a little box or a little diamond like that, right? Now I want you to close your left eye. I don't know my left from my right. And look through your other eye, your other left eye, like this. And just make note of what appears between your fingers. See what I'm doing? Just make note of what appears between your fingers. Make note of the scene, right? Close the other eye, look out from only one eye, and see what the scene looks like. Now, let's switch that around. The eye that's open, close it. The eye that's closed, open it. And move your finger to the other eye. What does this scene look like? I can't do it, but the point is these scenes look totally different. That's because they are of a different perspective. Well, your prosperity and your ability to experience prosperity can look different as well, based on your perspective. And that's what I want to cover tonight. The prosperity hack called perspective. Now, as it relates to prosperity, what has made prosperity difficult is the perspective that we were alone, the perspective that there is a force outside of us that is working against us, the perspective of our not good enoughness, the perspective of our belief that it must be difficult and that if there is no gain, there is no pain, there is no gain without pain, and if there is something worth having, it's worth fighting for. And the perspective that there is a vengeful, punitive force outside of us withholding from us. That's quite often the human perspective, and that perspective can inhibit our ability to experience prosperity. So what if we had a different perspective? What if we had the perspective of God? What if we perceived that the power that created heaven and earth, that is the power of God, was the power within us? What if we believed we were one with that power? And what if we believed that that power was a creative force? And when we joined with that power in partnership, we could do anything, for that force with which we were joined could do anything and could do anything through us. That perspective could cause us to be able to create miracles. One of the best prosperity affirmations I ever heard was from Catherine Ponder, one of the mothers of prosperity, when she said, "I alone can't do it, but the Christ within me can, and is creating miracles in my mind, body, and affairs." That perspective, that there is something within me, the Christed energy, the light of God, the grace of God, the power of God, the energy of God, that within me with which I am one, can do all things. And through me, as I align with that, I can do all things. That's what she said. And that's mirrored in lesson 125 of A Course in Miracles. Let me remember that I am one with God. That perspective is a perspective of oneness, is a perspective of unity, is a perspective of non-duality. And from that perspective, prosperity becomes easy and effortless. So that's what we're going to discuss with you tonight. And we're going to discuss some very practical ways that we can use this perspective to create our prosperity. And when I say we, I am not alone. You guys keep ringing my phone and texting me and sending me notes and sending me emails about that guy with that beard. And you keep asking for him. And so I give the people what they want. So it's not just me. I'm here tonight with one of our favorite guests, Edward Miller, author of the book Soul Power, bright sage, wise teacher, and dear friend. Hi, Ed.
Well, thank you so much, Reverend Jim. I love being on this show. I love connecting with you. Yesterday, was it yesterday? You and I had the most interesting conversation. I guess
Yes.
because we're free
Yes.
and we love each other, it creates this vibrational love that we have between us, which is it's giddy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's stupid.
It's stupid, silly, giddy, fun, funny, and we had the best conversation laced with so many four-letter words. Like we can't
Absolutely,
repeat the
absolutely.
conversation here.
There's no shame in our game, is there?
Amen. It was wonderful. But we want you all to have that experience tonight as well, minus the four-letter words. So what we're going to do is what I always endeavor to do. Let you in on a conversation between two cousins sitting on the back porch where you incidentally learn something that can help you move your life forward in wondrous ways.
Yes.
So we're glad to have Ed Miller again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm
Now,
so
Ed is quite the proponent of non-duality, and he's an expert in that concept. And so I want him to tell us, Ed, what is your perspective on non-duality? Can you explain non-duality for us a little?
Yeah, I have studied so much non-duality, and I guess I like to talk in very concise terms when I explain non-duality from my point of view.
Yes.
Non-duality is awareness that only God exists.
Okay.
Everything else is perceived.
Yes.
In mind. Everything, as we were talking, everything else is imagined, thought about, sensed, but it's all part of mind. But what all that is truly exists is God. God is one, and that's who we are. There's no separation between us. We don't have to pray up to anything. We just have to be aware of our truth all the time.
Yes.
And it requires practice and what Reverend Jim was talking about, a few hacks. But it is a new relationship we have with ourselves. We're not having it with just our human self anymore. We're having this new relation with our divine self, the truth of our nature, the truth of us as God, as the space, as the divine spirit, as the unmanifested. That's how we start relating and being aware of ourselves. And, you and I talked about also that a lot of it is felt in meditation.
Yes. Yes. When you meditate, you feel as if you are a part of something bigger than yourself. When you meditate, your ego starts to disappear. Your name, rank, and serial number starts to dissipate. All the things you associate with your name, your rank, your serial number, your race, your gender, your sexuality, your economic position, your geographic position, all of that stuff falls away. And the only thing left is the love that you are. And in that meditation, when you become that love, you become at one with love. And what is love other than God? What is God other than love?
Yes.
And that oneness is such, some people call it transcendental meditation because you transcend your human body. Others call it transformational meditation because you transform from being your ego self filled with guilt, filled with shame, filled with doubt, filled with not enoughness, to your God self, filled with light, filled with love, filled with power, and filled with grace. And that shift is an energetic shift, but it's also a shift in perspective.
It's a shift in awareness, absolutely.
Yes.
You no longer, once you realize you're just space, once you realize you're just the unmanifested, and that's the truth of your nature, you don't have to bear anything at that point. All is good. Everyone loves you. You love yourself. There's no karmic constrictions or contractions because it's all love. And we have to be able to relate to that regularly if we're going to be free. If not, we're going to be caught up in our stories. Which is our perceptions.
Yes. And the question I often ask people is, would you rather be in your story or would you rather be in your glory? In your story, you're struggling. In your story, you're oppressed. In your story, life is difficult. In your story, it's not a lot of fun. In your story, you're mired in your past experiences and the imprints of those experiences. But when you're in your glory, you are one with God. When you're in your glory, you are one with light. When you're in your glory, there is nothing you cannot do from that perspective. And that's a perspective hack.
That's it's a perspective hack.
Yes.
In mind, in our stories, there's always judgment.
Yes.
There's always somebody's wrong.
Yes.
There's always something that's inadequate or not enough. There's always aspiring of something to be different than what it is.
Yes.
But in your glory, there is no judgment.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's just space and love and acceptance
Yes.
and peace.
Yes.
And that's who we are. That's who we are in
Yes.
our nature.
Yes.
And we have to find a way to start relating to that in our problematic minds and stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my question for everyone here tonight is, would you rather be in your story or would you rather be in your glory? Wanda already answered. She anticipated what she knows me well enough to know what the question is going to be. She's heard enough of my sermons to know this is the question he's going to ask. And she already put in the answer. Would you rather be in your story or would you rather be in your glory? I think the answer is obvious for most of us. So what we're going to do now is
but Reverend Jim, a lot of us are very addicted to our stories too, aren't we?
Yes.
We love our stories. Our stories identify us. They tell us who we are and they make us right or wrong. But our stories are our addicted pleasure that it sometimes seems impossible to let go of.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like being addicted to sugars or being addicted to carbs. And you know why it's just like being addicted to sugar? Because our story gives us that short-term sugar rush.
It gives us a little, yeah. We talked about that yesterday too.
Yes, we did.
The story is intoxicating. And we're like, I feel my story. But we have to be willing to feel a story without telling ourselves it's true.
Yes. This is a story, and it's giving me a rise because I've been conditioned, and I've conditioned myself to get a rise out of my story. It triggers all my stuff. Yes. And your story is supposed to trigger all your stuff, but it's not supposed to trigger all your stuff to echo in the empty cavern of your energy forever. It's supposed to trigger your stuff so that it can come up to transform.
Yes, we can be made aware of.
Yes.
And within awareness, there's transcendence.
Yes. Yeah. Awareness is 80% of it. So when your story comes up, the question is, ask, what is the story and how is this serving me now? It may be serving your ego, and let me tell you why it might be serving your ego. It might be serving your ego because your ego is satisfied with the status quo. And let me tell you, your ego loves being a victim because your ego loves telling that story. Your ego loves getting attention. Your ego loves the comfort of that.
Yes.
There's a certain comfort even in that which is negative.
Yes.
Like that old saying, the devil you know is better than the devil that you don't know. There's a certain degree of comfort in that. And A Course in Miracles says the ego is insane. And the insanity of the ego is that it takes comfort in its old stories. It gets a sugar high out of that. And it takes a lot to pry us away from those old stories. That righteous indignation. Anybody here know the righteous indignation of victimhood? You feel also so righteous and justified in being a victim, right?
Exactly.
And you get a rise out of that, right?
It feels good.
Doesn't it feel good?
It feels good until it starts to feel bad.
Exactly. And so how do we get out of that pattern? You know, like a kid, if you don't want your kid playing with a gun, you give them a Nerf ball instead, right? Yeah. You gotta give yourself another alternative. And the alternative we have to give ourselves is not the sugar high of an ego rush, but the spiritual nutrition of light, where you don't go up and crash and go up and crash and go up and crash, but the light that just keeps you continually climbing, continually sustaining. And we get that light in prayer and meditation when we release the energy of the story and instead open in that void to the grace and glory of God.
The grace, I love that. The grace, yes.
Yes. Yeah. And that starts to get us addicted to light instead of darkness.
Yeah.
Peace instead of conflict. Joy instead of pain. Ease instead of struggle. And so that's how we choose our glory versus our story.
Yes.
Now there's some ways that we can actually examples of how we can use this, because I know for some of us it still may seem like an esoteric discussion.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some ways that we can shift our perspective, hack our perspective to a perspective of unity, of non-duality. So right now we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to give some actual examples of how we can do this. So we're going to go to break, but we'll be back here on the New Thought Media Network.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And we're back. I'm Reverend Jim Webb, and we're back on the Miracle of Prosperity with my guest, Edward Miller. And what we want to do now is take this spiritual esoterica, this spiritually esoteric idea of non-duality, and we want to break it down in human form. And so I'm going to give an example and the anatomy of a story. And this is not my story. This is a story shared with me by Reverend Carl Pileski. When he was at NASA, he made note of these two women on Monday morning break. He noticed these two women, and he always sat next to them at Monday morning break, and he'd overhear their conversations. They couldn't wait to get to Monday morning break. They were almost beside themselves with excitement in preparation for Monday morning break. It was almost like he could sense them vibrating and waiting to get together on Monday morning break. It was like they were going to burst if they didn't get together for Monday morning break. So every Monday morning, they got together for Monday morning break, and they sat there and they talk about their husbands. One said, "Let me tell you what that beast did this weekend." And the other one said, "Oh, no, child, let me tell you what my husband did." And they go on and on and on. And you could hear them getting high. You could hear them getting intoxicated when they talked about how their husbands had mistreated them and what a beast their husband was and how he did do this and how he didn't do that. And he just noticed their body language. And what he realized is that they were addicted to being in relationships that didn't serve them. And what the payoff was for them was getting sympathy and attention from each other and that support. So the question we all have to ask ourselves when we get embroiled in our story is, what is your story and how is it serving you? Because this story was actually serving these women, but it was serving also to limit their experience of joy, fulfillment, and satisfaction. Now, they probably couldn't see that their glory could serve them even more than their story. So we all have to be reminded, you can stay stuck in your story, and it may serve you to a certain degree, but your glory can serve you much more. Their glory on the other side of their story was a more fulfilling relationship, more joy, more satisfaction, more peace, and less frustration. But they couldn't see their glory for their story. So that's an example of how our perspective can shift from our story to our glory and why we would get stuck in our story. So we're going to look at some practical ways. We've got some questions. Thank you. We're going to look at some practical ways to apply non-duality. And the first practical way to apply non-duality is in prayer. You can either pray from a perspective of duality, or you can pray from a perspective of non-duality. When you pray from a perspective of duality, you're only going to get more duality. When you pray from a perspective of non-duality, you're going to get more joy, more peace, more satisfaction, and a more effective prayer. Now, Ed, they call prayer spiritual mind treatment in Science of Mind, don't they?
Yes, they absolutely do.
Because they take the perspective of non-duality.
Well, the first step in spiritual mind treatment is unification.
Yes.
It's the awareness that we are one with the divine.
Yes.
But, I always take that a step farther. We're not one with the divine. We are the divine.
Yes.
I think that when we make ourselves one with something, we're then outside of it. And I think we need to claim ourselves as divine. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, no, I can't be divine. But yes, you can, because in your true nature, that's what you are.
Yes. When you shed your ego and your ego perspective of yourself, which is not who you really are, that's a costume, like a costume we wear on Halloween. When you take off that costume, your essence is your divine essence. So praying from a non-dual perspective is, Mother, Father, God, Great Spirit, our Creator, I am one with you, you with me. And as we acknowledge God and we unify with it, you are the grace and glory of the universe. I am your grace made manifest. You are the peace that passes all understanding. I am at one with you and thus your peace. You are joy unimaginable, and I am the repository of your joy. That
Woo, Reverend Jim, I just love the way you preach.
Oh, I see. I do this all the time. You see, every morning at 7:55, we have a Course in Miracles where we're meditating, we pray, and we do a prayer every day. So you've been praying every day, several times a day for 20 years, and guess what? Unification becomes second nature to you. And so the essence of unification is God, and we cite the attributes of God that we want to experience.
I love it. I love it.
And then we unify with them. God, you are the flow of ease and joy and effortlessness that makes all things easy, new, and good.
Yes.
And I am the recipient and the conduit of this flow. So that which I touch and that which I accomplish will be accomplished easily, effortlessly, and joyfully. That mirroring, that unification, it really makes what we speak into existence. By the time we speak it to existence, it already is, because it's been a part of us and we a part of it. Does that make any sense, Ed?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that affirmative prayer is an example of how we can practically use non-duality. Because isn't that much more effective than treating God like Santa Claus? Oh, God, give me this. Oh, God, give me that. Oh, God, if you feel ready and if you want to and if you're in
if I'm worthy enough. Yes, exactly.
If I'm worthy enough. God, can you please find me worthy enough to maybe give me a little bit of what I asked for? Please.
Well, let me give you another hack that I think is really powerful in non-duality. You know, in Hindu, in Vedanta, they talk about, am I that? Or who am I? And that when we're stuck in mind and we're stuck in believing things and believing ourselves as whatever, husbands, wives, friends, colleagues, black, white, whatever we're believing ourselves, that we have to re-examine the truth of that story and ask ourselves, who am I? And once you start to question that, inquire more in the self-inquiry, you start to become aware, and when you ask that question, that all you can ever be is pure unmanifested.
Right.
You can't be the story. You can't be the sensation. You can't be the anything that's of mind, because you're greater than just mind.
Yes. Beautiful.
You're greater than mine. So then the next question you can ask is, am I that? And that's a great one for me, because whenever life happens and situations, circumstances happen, they trigger you. You have to remember, just because you're triggered, am I that? You know what I'm saying? Am I that trigger? Am I that emotional reaction? Am I that belief? And when you question your mind, it's very introspective exercise.
Yeah.
When you question, am I that? You always have to come to the conclusion, no, you can't be that.
Right.
Because what you are is the divine unmanifested.
Exactly.
You're the space.
So I am not my experience.
Yes.
I am not my past. Nope. I am not this thing that works my nerves in this moment. No. I'm none of that. Those are things, and that is not me.
And you're not your body and your mind either.
Yes. One of the best lessons in A Course in Miracles is, I am not my body. I am free, for I am still as God created me.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is one of the most powerful lessons in the Course.
So whenever you find yourself caught in, am I that? It's a quick thing to think about, and you have to quickly debunk it. I can't be that.
Yes.
I can't be that story, that disappointment, that letdown, that problem. You know what I'm saying? I can't be those things. So then who am I?
I'm the holy beloved of God. We've got some wonderful questions, Mr. Ed. And so let's work with some of these questions. One of the first questions that I think we can work with is by Jane Batt. How do we apply a non-dual perspective to processing the evening news so as to not get overwhelmed by the conflicts, pain, and suffering?
I love that question. I love that question. Yes. Well, one thing we can do is remember, you can't be that. You can't be those conflicts of the news. You can't be what you hear on the news or what, the stories of the news. You can't be that. So maybe you need to just detach yourself from all those stories for sometimes.
Mhm.
Maybe you need to turn
Yes.
off the news. Maybe you need to stop
Mm.
taking the news into mind to make it something to think about or understand or reason with. Maybe you need to allow yourself space from it so that you can start to detach from those problematic stories.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful point. Wonderful point. And understanding what the news is. It's a movie reel,
Sure.
and it's a reel of our collective insane projections.
Thank you. Yes.
We have had a
Part of our
savage
collective
fantasy.
consciousness. Yes.
Exactly. We have had a savage, A Course in Miracles calls it a savage fantasy. This fantasy of separation, this fantasy of lack, this
Yes.
fantasy of struggle, this fantasy of difficulty, this fantasy of conflagration, this fantasy of disappointment. And this savage fantasy is based on the false idea that we are separate from God.
Yes.
And God is separate from us. But when we remember that we are one with love, light, joy, peace, and we experience that feeling and we start creating from that perspective, then we can detach from the savage fantasy that is the collective projection.
Absolutely.
And that detachment, that moving into non-duality helps us to detach from that.
Yes.
That is not me. That is an experience and another thing that has helped me with that is this is the crystallization of past consciousness.
Yes. Yes. I don't have to bear that. Yes.
In this holy instant, A Course in Miracles calls it a holy instant. In this holy instant, I am love.
Ooh.
That on the TV screen is the crystallization of past consciousness, where I and nobody else believed they were love, and they didn't believe love existed, or if love existed, they had to fight over it, or if it existed, it would hurt them. But in this moment of grace and glory, in this holy instant, I am love. So I can detach from that, and I can have peace instead of that which I see. So those are some of the ways that I learned to kind of stay in non-duality despite what's going on around me.
Yeah, but Reverend Jim, I don't want people to think that this is easy.
Oh no,
it's a moment by moment awareness
yes.
of the truth of your own nature, moment by moment, because sometimes the mind is going to come in heavy and strong and try to dictate to you who you are.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. This is, the part of it that is easy is you keep applying it over and 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 over again. I've been applying this over and over and over again for 40 years. The part of it that is hard is the resistance that your ego has to.
Sure.
Because your ego will fight you every inch of the way. Because your ego feels like it is being displaced. Just like when you're a child and the next child comes along and knocks you off your mother's lap and knocks you off your mother's tit, you feel like you've been displaced. You feel like you've been set aside. You feel like you've been devalued. Well, when our ego fears that it is being displaced and therefore destroyed when our highest self and our higher perspective starts to take over.
Yes.
So what does it do? It rebels and it revolts and it resists. So the resistance is the difficult part. The easy part is applying the truth over and over and over.
But like
again.
any wild stallion, when you ride it, it bucks you off, it takes you on a rough ride.
Yes.
And after a while, you learn that you roll with it, and then the stallion gets tired, and then you're just trotting along.
Hey, I love that. Yes.
When energies come in and emotional energies trigger you with stories of wrong or stories of terror, you just keep riding that horse because you know it's peaceful now, and you're peaceful now. Yes. So you don't have to let it knock you off your horse anymore.
Don't let it knock you off your horse.
No matter what comes in the news, don't let it knock you off your horse. Just keep riding that horse and realizing that you're in sync with that horse. That horse is the ups and downs of this, the moments that are a little intense, they're okay. There's nothing wrong.
Yes.
And just, don't let the ego become and but this other thing, the ego doesn't ever have to be your problem.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that you develop a relationship with.
Mm.
You put awareness on the ego because you know it's going to behave the way it does.
Yeah.
But once you put awareness on it, sometimes it'll alter its point of view to give you more space and more peace.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, this leads into another question, which is fascinating. Carlisa asked for a hack to keep the focus on the point of power and choice. And what that is, the context for that is, we always have a choice into how we feel, how we act, how we react, and whether we choose to experience heaven or hell at any moment. And one of my favorite hacks here that moves me into non-duality instead of in the world of conflict and duality is I could see peace instead of this. That's a lesson in A Course in Miracles. Yeah. I could see peace instead of this.
Yes.
And the choice is mine. Whether if I go into non-duality, I will see that peace. If I stay mired in duality, I will see the conflict.
Absolutely.
I could see peace instead of this. Within me and within each and every one of us, there is a place where peace has resided internally, and eternally undisturbed.
Oh, I love that.
That well of peace that lives within us is the well of peace God placed there. That well of love that lives within us is the well of love God placed there. That well of grace that lived within us is the well of grace God placed there. We can go there at any time. And the more we practice going to that place within, that place where peace exists, that place where love exists, that place where light exists, that's the sacred fulcrum.
Yes. Thank you.
And we practice going there over and over again. I could see peace instead of this. I can go to that place. I can go to the well of love instead of going out there where all that mayhem is happening. Amen?
Yes. And you know what? When we fall off the horse or we get caught up in ego or mind or story, we can always forgive ourselves for our transgressions. We can always forgive ourselves for having a moment of being caught up in caca, boo-boo.
Yeah.
And return back to the space, to the truth of our nature.
Yes, I call that just be Britney Spears. Oops, I did it again. Oops, I did it again.
Oops, there I go again. Yeah, I hear you. So when I'm caught up in things like that, I say, oh my God, there I go again. Ooh. Take a breath. Calm down. Because I know that ego can take us all into a story. But when you are kind to yourself,
yes,
and when you are aware of yourself, you can navigate those stories sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. 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 So let's all take a breath because we're going to go to break again. And we're going to wrap this up with some more fun stuff and some more of your questions. So everybody take a breath, get centered in your oneness with God. Just breathe for a moment. And if you choose, work with a thought form right now. I am at one with light. And just breathe that in. And allow the light to move into each and every of your energy centers. Become more aware of the light that is already there, that vibrates, pulsates, and expands. Take another deep breath. I am at one with love. Breathe that in. Just breathe that in. And feel yourself being filled with energies and particles that activate the love within you. I am at one with light. I am at one with love. Let's do another one. I am at one with peace. For when you say I am, you are unifying with the great I am. And what comes after that, you become. I am at peace. And finally, I am at one with God. God being love, grace, and peace. I am at one with God. God being love, grace, and peace. And this tracks with A Course in Miracles lesson 103, 104. God being love is happiness. And just breathe in this experience for a moment. And let's just do it again ever so briefly. I am at one with light. Breathe that in. I am at one with grace. Breathe that in. I am at one with peace. Breathe that in. I am at one with love. Breathe that in. God is love. So I am at one with God. Breathe that in. God, being love, is happiness. I am at love, at one with happiness and prosperity. Just breathe that in. And I want you to stay in this place and make note of how you feel and how different you feel. And as you stay in this place, as you gently emerge from it, make notes on how you feel and how you feel yourself having shifted working with this. And share your experiences in the comments. So right now we're going to go to break. When we come back, please share your experiences in comments. So for now, we're going to go to break on the New Thought Media Network. And we're back on the New Thought Media Network, the Miracle of Prosperity. I'd love to hear your comments on how you felt yourself transforming from that brief meditation. So while you were typing in your comments, letting us know how that has affected you, I'm going to ask you, Ed, what are you working on these days?
Oh, wow. I'm starting a new series. I had just finished a series on reimagining yourself in the world. And it was so powerful that it got a lot of great attention. And I've been asked to do a second series on just reimagining ourselves in this new world. So I'm excited about that. As I told you guys a few weeks ago, I'm about to start my podcast series again, which I'm excited about. And that's about it. I'm having fun. I've been traveling a lot, hanging out with my wife and doing well. How have you been and what you've been into, Reverend Jim?
I've been ecstatically joy. I've been so beside myself in joy that if I were any more beside myself, I'd be twins.
So be careful with
that. So I've been working on something very exciting. I've been working on my audiobook, which was just released, and some new classes that I'm doing for late fall. Right now, as you know, I'm doing on Monday nights, Spirit Speaks on family relationships. And on Thursday nights, I'm doing Spirit Speaks on past lives, because both family relationships and past lives can offer unconscious blockages to prosperity. So Spirit is helping us to work through that so that we can open to prosperity. Well, I'm working on some new classes that begin on October 23rd and 26th, respectively. I'm working on a new class on Mondays, beginning October 23rd, called Spirit Speaks, Preparing for Prosperity. And it's based on the idea in A Course in Miracles that miracles are normal and everyone's birthright. However, purification is necessary first. So as we move to the end of the year and as we start moving into next year, what do we do at the beginning of the year? We put together our vision boards. We start our manifestation process all over again. But in order to do that effectively, we have to prepare. We have to purify. And so the last 6 weeks of the year is a purification process where Spirit will help us to move all the trash out of our minds, move all the trash out of our hearts, move all the debris out of our energy so that we can be clear and manifest our good without any obstruction in January. So that's Preparing for Prosperity on Monday nights, beginning on October 23rd. And then on October 26th, I'm doing something called Friendship with Spirit. This is an experiential class where we develop such a strong and trusting relationship with Spirit that we just feel that blessed assurance at all times that everything is going to be well. We learn to listen to Spirit so Spirit can say, oh, there's something around the corner, go the other way. And we listen and trust Spirit enough to go the other way. And we feel a sense of peace and that we are never alone. And that one's called Friendship with Spirit. You can find all of this information on my website, www.revjimwebb.com. And that's what I'm working on these days.
You're a busy boy.
I'm very busy. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you all a secret. I guess it won't be a secret once I tell you all. But I'm doing a little mini ebook that I'll have ready for January 1st. This little mini ebook is, I don't have the exact title for it yet, but the essence of it is bringing your dream board to life. And it'll be ready for January 1st. So on January 1st, when we start doing our dream boards, we can have practices and processes to bring them to life. So those are the things that I'm working on these days. And I can't wait for bringing your dream board to life. It'll be available as an ebook available immediately. So that's what I'm up to. So if you hear me tapping on my computer, I'm working on bringing your dream boards to life.
Well, you are a miracle, Reverend Jim. It's always a pleasure being part of your audience and being just a supporter of you and everything you do. So thank you.
And likewise, and thank you for enlightening our guests. Thank you for enlightening us. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your company. And we're going to do a final prayer. We're going to do a final prayer. And I see lots of reactions to how that meditation affected folks, and that's wonderful. We'll put some of those up during the final prayer because we have 2 minutes. And the prayer will be simple. And it's the title of A Course in Miracles, Lesson 125. And let's repeat it like a mantra 3 times. Let me remember that I am one with God. Let me remember that I am one with God. Let me remember that I am one with God. That's the power of 3. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight on the power of prosperity. Join us every Sunday night at 8 p.m. here on the New Thought Media Network.